So California once again has a registration open for so-called assault weapons. So let's talk about this. But real quick before I jump into this video, if you think that the state of California is violating our Second Amendment rights with this ban on so-called assault weapons, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also want to give a shout out to one of the main supporters of this channel, which is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you take a look into USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. Also want to let you know that this content is powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. So head on over to joinfpc.org to help support the Second Amendment cause. Thank you again, Firearms Policy Coalition, for supporting this channel. So like I said in the intro, the state of California is once again opening a period of time for California gun owners to register their rifles with the state of California as so-called assault weapons. This is happening because last year, the state of California reached a settlement agreement in a lawsuit called Sharp v. Becerra. Sharp v. Becerra was a case dealing specifically with a challenge to California's registry system that was instituted back in 2018. Back in 2018, the state of California had gun owners register their bullet button AR-15s and rifles with the state of California. This was done because the state changed their definition of what they deemed to be so-called assault weapons, and that new definition included things like bullet button AR-15s. A lot of you who are new gun owners in California, maybe you're not familiar with bullet button rifles, but that was a thing back in the day where people had these mechanisms on their rifles where to detach the magazine, you had to use some sort of tool or a bullet, i.e. why it got the bullet button name, to actually release that magazine. This was done as a compliance option so that a rifle did not meet the definition of a so-called assault weapon at that time. Well, of course, the state of California didn't like that. They didn't like that workaround, so they changed the law, and now under California Penal Code Section 30515, even AR-15s with bullet buttons are actually banned as so-called assault weapons. Now, one option during that time was for someone to still be in possession of that rifle and maintain that rifle in that configuration was to register it with the state of California as a so-called assault weapon, and they had a certain period of time to do that. The other option, of course, was to change the configuration to make it a featureless rifle or a fixed magazine rifle build so that it no longer met the definition of a bullet button assault weapon. So there was the two options. Some people decided to register it. Some people decided to just change the configuration so that it didn't meet that definition. Well, for some people who decided that they wanted to go the registration process, when they went to actually register it with the state of California completely botched the system. Some people who went on the website who tried to register it experienced errors. The website would crash. There was also some timing issues with the website. Essentially, the state of California was not prepared at all. Maybe it was part of their plan to not even allow people the option to register, but essentially it just was a whole mess, and a lot of people who wanted to register their rifles with the state and to keep it in that configuration couldn't do it, and they couldn't do it by the deadline. And since then, some of these people have still been in possession of those rifles they tried to register but couldn't. The Sharp case challenged the state's enforcement against those people who tried to register with the state but couldn't because of the website issues. Now, the settlement agreement that was reached reopened the time period for those specific people. So after the settlement, the state said that they would create a new time period for those people to register these rifles, and we're waiting to see when that would actually be. Well, we now know that they have reopened the registration period, and it will start from January 13th of 2022, and it will go until April 12th of 2022. Now, there's one thing I want to make sure I clarify. If you go to the exhibit on the settlement and you go to page 2, it says the reopening of the assault weapon registration will be for only those individuals who possessed eligible firearms. So you must have possessed an eligible firearm prior to the registration back in 2018. That is one of the first requirements. The second requirement is that you must have started the process of submitting the applications to the Department of Justice Bureau of Firearms before July 1st of 2018, and you must have been someone who was unable to complete the submission process because of those technical difficulties. So this reopening and this registration process is only for those specific class of people if you meet both of those requirements. You must have had this firearm first in your possession prior to that registration period, and you must have tried to register it with the state but been prevented from doing so because of all these glitches. If you meet those criteria, then you can now choose whether or not you want to register it with the state of California, or maybe do something else. Again, the registration period is not just for everybody. You can't just build something now that's a bullet button and try to get it registered with the state of California. I would definitely not recommend do that. So don't try to register something like that with the state of California. And also, this is not a registration period for the Title I or other firearms in the state of California. That was a different registration period. That is not what's going on here. Now, for those of you who might meet these criteria, and your question might be at this point, whether or not you should actually go ahead and actually register your rifle with the state of California as a so-called assault weapon. I've been getting DMs, people asking me this question. Again, although I am a licensed practicing attorney in the state of California, this is not legal advice. If you need actual legal advice, I recommend you find an attorney in your local area, but I will just give you what I would do if I was in this situation. I really think this is a personal decision, but I'm gonna give you some things to kind of consider. A lot of people don't like the idea of registering a rifle with the state of California, mainly because, again, you're going to have to tell the state of California that you have this rifle in your possession and it's gonna be registered as a so-called assault weapon. And of course, the state of California knows what you're gonna have. Now, the state of California already, as it is, knows a lot of what we have, because if you do any current purchases right now, it's registered with the state of California. There are some kind of areas where there are things that are not registered with the state of California, depending on when you bought them. But as of right now, a lot of stuff, if you purchased it right here and now, it's gonna be registered with the state of California. So they know a lot of what we have, but you have to consider that you are going to register something with the state of California as an actual assault weapon. So if they decided just randomly that they're gonna seize all these dangerous assault weapons, they have you on a list in possession of one of these items. And another major thing to consider is that with the registration of a rifle with the state of California as a so-called assault weapon, there also comes other restrictions. There are restrictions on the way you have to transport that firearm, who can use it, who can inherit it when you actually pass away. And there are just a lot of other legal variables that you have to consider. There are a lot of other restrictions that come along with being in possession of a so-called assault weapon. If it was me, I would decide, no, I'm not gonna register it with the state of California. Instead, I would modify it into a compliant featureless build or a fixed mag build so that I wouldn't even be at risk of having been in possession of a so-called illegal assault weapon, or even having to kind of deal with this issue of whether or not I need to register it. I would just simply convert it into a featureless build as my personal preference. And another thing I really want you guys to take in consideration if maybe you are thinking about this registration process is, once you register a so-called assault weapon with the state of California, you then have to actually deal with the California Department of Justice if you ever want to modify that rifle, or if you even want to try to get it off that registry. You would have to talk with the DOJ, you would have to submit pictures to show the DOJ that it's no longer in a configuration that's deemed to be a so-called assault weapon. And it's just really a whole lot of mess. And personally, I don't think it's worth the headache or the potential risk to even register it with the state. I would just configure it in a way that actually does not meet the definition of a so-called assault weapon in Penal Code 30515. So if this registration period applies to you, I just want to let you know that you have until April 12th of this year to register with the state if you want to. But again, my personal opinion is I would not do it. I would just modify it into a featureless build. And in my opinion, it's just not worth the headache to register. It's just not worth all the process. And my personal preference is a featureless build anyways in the state of California. And I think it still would be better than a bullet button AR-15. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm, or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of 2A news. Again, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys directly impact these videos, impact this channel, and help me spread the word about the Second Amendment and just educate people about the Second Amendment and bring light to things like this that are going on. Again, the success of this channel is a big part because of you guys in the community, and you guys support me more than I could have ever thought. And again, I just cannot show you guys enough appreciation. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this is Built by Armed Scholars, the station we maintain by Armed Scholars.